Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Embellishment Show. And today we have a very special guest, an international guest coming from us from Monterrey, Mexico, my good friend Gerardo from Felicitos Leal. How are you today, Gerardo?
I'm fine, Kevin. Thank you. An honor to be here.
Oh, the honor is all mine. And from our conversations, I know you quite well. I know the phenomenal work that your shop does. And before we jump into all the great things you're doing with embellishments and all the fantastic work that you're really putting out, from what I understand, your history goes back deep in the print industry. Can you tell me a little bit more about your company and your history in the industry?
Yeah, we're a print shop in Monterrey, Mexico, northern East Mexico, founded in 1927. We are almost 100 years old. This is a picture of my great-great-grandfather. And, well, we're still in the area, about one block from this was taken. And we still do many things that were done in that era, but now in the digital age. So we have a lot of history, a lot of proud things to be talking about. And that's it. We're almost 100 years old. I'm the fourth generation of my family in this business. So we have seen a lot of changes during the life of this business.
That's beautiful, Ron. And I think, the print community, I think, really is one of those few industries where you're able to see that generation to generation passing on of the skills of the print shop. My grandfather was an offset pressman. When it's in your blood, it's in your blood and you love it. And it comes across when I talk to you. And those of you who are going to watch the show are going to get to know this more about you. But tell me some of the stuff that you're seeing going on right now. Like, talk to me more about, because you do a lot of different jobs, and that's what I really like about your shop. You're the owner, but you also run the machines. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you running your shop?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if it's something to be proud of, but when we look at our competition, our more direct competition, they have 172 employees, and we are less than 10. So We're doing something right. It's not just about technology. We run like a submarine here. Everyone knows everything about the machines we're operating. So we are transitioning from mostly analog processes to digital. The last 20 years have been insane. Just 2 weeks ago, someone asked me, and I didn't know if I could laugh, but apparently it was a serious question. They asked me if I could recommend a linotype operator. And I go, what? A linotype operator? Yes. And they're still in use. So I was reminded of this scene in the movie Wall Street, in the 87 movie. The villain buys an airline and they say, well, the planes are useless. What are you going to do with the planes? You are buying the brand. Sell them to the Mexicans. They can take care of the planes. And I was not offended because I see that we are in Latin America mostly, we are not afraid of using second-hand equipment or making things work. So for a linotype operator, what? There are still people here using Chandler presses in letterpress operations, letter by letter. So looking at us and doing hot stamping, variable data on 100,000 pieces per year, it's something else, something completely different. So we're looking at just 20 years in the last decade. It's been a tremendous change for all the printing industry.
Wow. There must be some definitely a lot of upheaval, and that's not just in Mexico, it's everywhere. But in Mexican market, I think, you've invested in, from I can see in the background, an MGI press to do digital embellishment. And if I'm not mistaken, go ahead.
This was the first 3DS installed in Latin America. We got a lot of support from Cónica Minolta, Mexico, to get it done. And one of the problems that happens here in Latin America, especially with equipment, is you must pay in full, because banks, the interest rate on equipment is 25, almost 80% in some cases. So you must be prepared to make big investments in full. And we had a little ease to get into this machine. This is our biggest acquisition to date 4 years ago, but it paid off. The machine paid itself in 2 years, maybe less. So we're very happy with it, and it opened up a lot of new areas that didn't conflict with traditional operations. Actually, we still have our Kluge, we still have our 4 lines of thermography that we still do. Some digital thermography, some offset thermography. We still have our thermotype presses for hot stamping that we still use. We're actually looking for grading those as well. But going for digital embellishment nowadays doesn't conflict. Actually, it makes better opportunities of traditional embellishment possible. So we are very happy with this machine. And if you look at it with traditional eyes, it's overwhelming. But if you look at the possibilities that no one else is taking and the risks, it's very rewarding.
So tell me, I mean, we have people in countries like the United States who bought similar machines and complain that they can't get the ROI on it, or some of them might say that they're not able to sell it correctly. And you're in Mexico, where obviously the pricing structure is significantly different from end user pricing, and you're able to pay off the machine in 2 years. So what do you think everybody else is doing wrong, and what do you think that you've caught on that you were able to do that crazy ROI?
That's a very interesting question. I hate the phrase subverting expectations. It's very in tow lately, because you're looking at the wanting of a client, what the client wants, and you give them less and let them adjust. It's not about that. It's about the wow factor. You need to not only wow them, but to make them think when looking at a piece, I didn't know that was possible. So one of my clients always complains, when I look at your work, you always keeping me and my designers on my toes, because we can say no once we looked at it. We love the piece, we want more of it. So you have to look at the machine not as a process, but as a means to an end. Because if you look at it as a process, you can do even more precise things with traditional hot stamping equipment, but not unique things. And that's precisely the point of the machine. When you look at unique things like VDP, like different foils or multi-level foils without the complexity of a die, you know you got something right. And that's the key. And once you get the customer to expect something different, they want it. I remember a few years ago, very wealthy client looked at the work and said, well, I want something I have never seen before. Can you deliver that? Yes, we delivered that. It was very well paid, and the customer was happy. So yes, it can be done, and this is one of the tools to get that done. So you have to look at it with another eyes, not just look at it to replace your existing equipment. I wouldn't look at it that way, because you have to train your sales force to say, well, there's a need for this embellishment, but we can also do this ton of different options for the client. And the client doesn't imagine what can be done. I remember, and this is a problem that I have a major in visual arts, but I have a major in photography and video, not in design. I wanted something different. So when I looked at my schoolmates who were studying design, they can't look past 4 colors, maybe special or spot colors. But the universities, the students themselves cannot look beyond offset press. And when they are approached with the traditional hot stamping, they say it's too expensive and too limited. We can change that with this equipment. So it's a matter of educating the students, the teachers, and opening up the market to new ideas, because that's all about the ideas. And I have some samples to show you that the most traditional processes that we have complement each other with this technology. So every time I try to approach a student, like, well, I know you can print 4 colors, and this is a piece that we printed about 25 years ago. Colors are still there. But imagine, well, if the painter knew what can we do a spot, for example, on the church or on this cross. And I mean, what's possible? And I know this painting personally. I color corrected it. I saw the original, and the original was in almost 3D. So I guess that the painter would have approved of this process. But it makes us wonder that the designers are not ready for this process because they haven't seen it. They don't know it. So we have to break the breach. And we talked about, I remember in one conference, an open house with students, with creative houses, with creative departments, so they can bring the files and open up a new opportunity for business too. So I think that's one of the paths that we can take.
I love that. I was just speaking with a user, and she was telling me that she refuses to give quotes with and without embellishments. She goes, either it's with embellishments and we do the product, or if you want a quote with and without embellishments, you allow me to show you a sample first with the embellishments, and then I show you with and without the price. And he goes, that way, it goes, since she started doing that, it's really, really easy to be able to upcharge and to get people to understand the value and the perceived value. And when you get your hands on that sheet and that wow moment you were just describing, it allows you to lock that in from a commercial standpoint. So I thought that was kind of interesting and kind of in line with what you were just saying.
Yeah, and it's not only perceived value. It's I always, coming from the history of the company, my great grandfather started making all kinds of prints. My grandmother specialized in high-end weddings and social stationery. So she brought Chronite engraving press, modern engraving press. So everything was engraved and was top of the line. But not everyone could paint engraved. So we have also thermography in line. And it's about opening up and the exclusivity of it, of every process that you make. The customer cannot separate themselves from the process. So I need this and I expect that. So working with those things can be very rewarding for the customer and for yourself, because they don't want they don't expect to look lesser than they know. So they see the process, they love the process and say, I need this because I want to look good. And they expect that. And we can deliver that.
Wow, that's amazing. So actually, I think it's interesting. We should make a little touch on this. Is Gerardo, you guys run a famously under the radar ship, meaning that typically you don't like to communicate on what you're doing, and you've agreed to do this interview today, this podcast, to talk a little bit about what you're doing and distribute it. Tell me, why did you agree to this? What's going on? Tell me a little bit about your strategy and how suddenly now you're starting to open up.
Well, that's a very interesting question. We are almost 100 years old. There is an old Venetian saying about Venice: if they cannot know you, they cannot love you. So we need to open up. And we are very proud of what we do. And making stuff is obviously beautiful stuff. I mean, when you look at a piece of yours and see the reaction on people's faces, you make people happy. And that's a great feeling. So we are looking to, maybe open to more experiences that we traditionally have, and maybe be surprised that we can take on interesting jobs. But opening up is a big opportunity for us, because the more traditionally that they look at you, they expect less. And when we came up with, I'm going to give you some examples now. This is our second card that we did here, and what they don't expect is hot stamping on the back. So yes, it's holographic, spot, and hot stamping on the back. So this is our second card that we made on this machine. But this was our first, I believe. Yes. So you can see the the advancement that we made year after year, and this is our last one.
Oh my goodness! Look at that. How many passes?
And this is actually one on black, 2 for the gold, and 3 for the varnish on the glow.
Oh my god! So what? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 passes?
Yeah, and the most I think the most interesting thing that we tried this year was the sleeking on the glow on the back. So we did the sleeking, we printed the card, and then we did the hot stamp passes.
That is an amazing piece. And I mean, that's a great way to get the word out when you're sending people holiday gifts or holiday cards.
Yeah.
Like, hey, by the way, your card could look like this next year if you come see us. You know, it's really
and actually my friends and some customers demand it. I mean, the collectible, we've been sending engraved cards for the last 10 years. So when we got this machine, we started experimenting with these techniques, and they say, well, I always love the way that you are innovating on the process. Because, okay, it's foil on foil, but it's not only foil on foil, it's leaking, printing, foil on foil, then varnish, then varnish, then varnish. Then the other side becomes hot stamp. And using new techniques, we can do this. Traditional techniques are not as easy going for this kind of processes. Actually, it's impossible to do foil on the back and foil on the reverse. That's as easy as this sounds.
But when I see you, and we're in a couple of groups together, and I see the stuff that you talk about, and you have an eye. You're like an R&D person. I feel like you're more R&D than a lot of the printers that I see, because you're constantly striving to find that cool thing that nobody's figured out yet. So you're always pushing yourself. I think intellectually you find passion in experimenting and trying to unlock different things that people haven't found yet. So I mean, it's really a pleasure whenever you talk in the groups, wherever you show a new sample, everybody stops to talk and say, oh, what did Gerardo do now? So it's always interesting to see.
Actually, I owe that to my father. He was an electrical engineer, and after graduation, he came back home, and he changed everything. He started with, our first Mac, our first laser printer, the first compographic photo generator for plates. So everything changed. He moved digitally. And when I came home, we did another jump in technology, and always trying to find what can you do with what you have. And usually it's not an easy answer. You must experiment all the time. You must find the papers that maybe they won't work, but they work for something else. You have to take a long breath and not be frustrated easily. Because if you frustrate easily and lose your way, it's going to be a very painful process. So I became, can we print on one side? Can we print with white toner? Can we print foil on the other side? Can we experiment with the laminates? Can we experiment with different foils from one side or the other? How much time do you need to process one of these? With the customer gave us 4 hours to manufacture this. So everything is a challenge, and when you take up such a challenge, the work is never boring. And when you look at the history of production and industrial processes, one of my inspirations is a man called Josiah Wedgwood in England in the 18th century. He pottery business. He made, about 100,000 experiments until he got the white he wanted. And he invented the pottery business in England with the Wedgwood white. So he was called Steve Jobs of his day. And when you look at industrial processes, you have to look at it with no fear and no room for frustration, because if you get frustrated, you're going to lose up all the advancements that you could have made. And I want to show you the real culprit of buying us buying this machine. I actually made this book. I don't know if you're familiar with it. We got it in a Graph Expo in 2015, and it became a bit of a scandal according to its author. And one of the things that is a small world, the man who made this installed the machine for us. So when he looked at this, he thought, this book got me into so many troubles for me, because it's a great piece, and it shows you what you can do on this machine. So when I looked at it and I brought it home, and we need this now. So one of the few things that happened that year was that the 3DL was too big for us, because we're a small print shop. We don't do those formats. But the 3DS was being introduced that year, and it's just a matter of time before you add foil to the machine. And 2 years later, we got the machine, and here we are, experimenting still.
Love it. Gerardo, you have one piece of advice to give to yourself right before you bought the machine. What would it be?
The moment I decided that we must engage on the process of buying the machine, 2 weeks later, I found out I was going to be a dad. And 6 months later, I got married. The only advice I could give myself if I have a time machine is don't do it all at once. Because it was the most intense year of my life. I mean, I told people this year, events in this year are more happened. I don't know. So many things happened a year than in the last 10. So, and in the space of 6 months, we got the machine installed in August. I got married in September. My daughter arrived in November. So take all the sleep that you can get and be patient. So it was a great 2019 was a great year, and be prepared for 2020 because COVID is coming. So that changed everything again. So it's been a couple of wild years for us, but we are still in the spirit of experimenting and making things that no one expects. So it's been fun, and that's the key too. Have fun. Have fun with your work and make people happy with your work, and everything will be all right.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Make people happy with their work is the secret to Felicitos Leal's 100-year history and their embarkation into the digital print embellishment world.
Remember the discussion on purple that we had?
Yes. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That's incredible.
And when I remember, you can have one in gold. So another piece I wanted to show you. This was my baby shower. Well, not my baby shower, my daughter's baby shower. And it was with silver stickers and rose gold. So she was one of the first people that got advantage of the machine. And one funny story, this is a part. One client asked us to make some money holders in thermography for us. And I said, well, maybe we could do something else. And we made this one in gold with the machine. This is startering paper. And we were very worried about the script, but the machine delivered perfectly. And the client doesn't want but this. This is the only one she wants now. So it's experiment. Always experiment.
Love it. I love it. Well, Gerardo, that's all the time we have today. Thank you very much for being such a wonderful guest with the Digital Embellishments Show. We hope to have you back shortly. If you guys have any questions or comments, please send an email to Gerardo or to myself. I'll put his information in the description below. Gerardo, have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us, my friend.
Thank you, Kevin. Goodbye.
Bye.